Good morning, everyone. My name is Tim Selden. I'm here with my colleagues, Dr. Lindsay Pollock, who is the provost of Sarasota University, the first Montessori education accredited university that I know of in the world, offering bachelor's completions, master's degrees, and soon and now a doctoral program in Montessori
Yes, we've got
education.
cohort two.
There you go. And Dr. Cindy Acker, who is also a colleague and a friend. She is the founder of at least seven schools in the San Francisco Bay Area. She is a noted scholar, author, playwright, um, musician, and advocate for social justice and keeping in touch of issues of advocacy on all sorts of issues for the private school and the childcare industry. And Cindy is our special guest. We'd love to have you more often, Cindy, but you reached out to me saying, are you aware of what's going on and how this is affecting schools? And so, Cindy, we're here to support you. Tell us what you want us to know and talk about. And I want to remind everyone you're muted at the beginning, but you're all welcome to communicate with us by chat or by unmuting. And you can request to unmute if you have a problem with it, or you just raise your hand and we'll tell you to unmute, and we're happy to have you. So, Cindy, what do you want us to know?
Um, well, there have been a lot of different programs that have been eliminated of late, and other reasons that people have been deported. There's one program called the Humanitarian Parole Program, which was set up by Biden, and it provided a legal pathway for people. Originally, it was Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelan people, so it was called CHNV to allow them to live and work. And particularly was it designed for educators, administrators, and a few other occupations to come over to the United States to be sponsored, to be here legally, and to lawfully work. And around 2023, I believe, other countries got added. El Salvador was one of them. And the idea of being able to include families became a part of that program. But what has also happened is that those programs have been stifled or stopped. And so in December, people got um, news of information. It wasn't an email or snail mail or a phone call, but people were hearing it via social media that the Pearl program was ending and that people had to, within a 48-hour period from the announcement, begin to file a form called I-485. But an I-485 form required so many other things that would actually take weeks. And they were given until end of the day on Monday to have completed the form. And a teacher that is in one of the schools that I founded went to 6 different attorneys to try to get the I-485 completed, and they said it was just an impossibility, that it was something that would take more time than the 24-hour period that was given by the White House. And so that individual has already gone. The information said that they would be deported. They could self-deport by January 13th, or a deportation would begin beginning January 14th. And I think that the thing that is surprising is the impact on schools. I don't think that a lot of people are really aware of the impact that schools have on some of the deportation processes that are happening right now, and the fear of being deported, even if someone isn't being deported, the fear that it's coming is something that has definitely affected many schools. And so I started to look at some of the research that's been done just recently about some of the effects of schools. There was a study that ended in 2025 that found nearly 40,000 people in childcare left the field because they feared deportation. And so that has been an incredible loss to a lot of early child care centers who have been struggling to meet ratios and requirements for what they have needed for schools. And there have been parents who have stopped working because they have lost their childcare, and so because of that, they are at home, which has affected the numbers of children who are enrolled in early childhood ed programs and in some other school age programs. And then just fear. There's been fear on the part of the educators. It's been fear on the part of their families. And so, for example, the teacher who was in the school that I founded in Novato, their family opted to self-deport early as soon as they heard the information because they feared that they might possibly be separated and deported to another country other than their home country. And so even that fear itself has been something that has moved people to leave the field or to leave the country completely. And so the what the study calls foreign-born childcare labor has declined, and that 39,000, and I'm reading from the Better Life Labs research report, 39,000 fewer foreign-born childcare workers um, are no longer in the field since January. There are also 77,000 fewer American mothers of preschool age children in the workforce since that time.
Yeah.
And
This is,
so,
I suspect we all have individuals we already know who are affected by this. I know of at least one person who was administrator of an international baccalaureate school. The actual IB diploma program coordinator was here as a Venezuelan under the amnesty program. And he had to self-deport earlier last year. And, it's really, really affecting people. And in childcare, I wrote an article back in the fall suggesting that one of the ways that we, whether we're Montessori school or a private school or a childcare center, some of the best people that we've ever had and some of the best people that we could get are people who want to work in the United States and are willing to come over either for a guest worker program, a J1, 1 to 5 year program, or on an H-1B if they can get it, just because there are opportunities here that aren't available in their country. And as the Hechinger report just recently put out, these people are usually very well educated and are definitely willing to work for the salaries that many of our schools are able to pay. That's one of the challenges is, we're all struggling. Our parents can only pay so much.
yeah, and interesting, that same report that you're mentioning surprised me because it said that nearly 500,000 early childhood educators are immigrants. I was shocked at those numbers, nearly 500,000. And
Mhm.
and when you say that this is something that is a challenge for many different people, it definitely is.
Absolutely. I'm at a school in Oakland, and I know I'm not far from you, Cindy, but I would say of the 40 some people working for the school that I'm working with as a consultant, I would say probably 85% of them are foreign born. And one of the things that I know from personal experience, I know you know too, and the Hechinger report lays out the statistics, is these people are usually very well educated and much better educated than we can typically find in the United States for our early childhood or support staff people. Now, again, if you're running a private school and you're running, let's say, a high school, you may be able to recruit people with master's degrees and doctorates who are Americans, but there's no question that it is difficult, whether you're public or private, whether you're high school, whether you're, charter school, like Dr. Pollock ran, uh, a very large public elementary Montessori school and is very involved with the Houston school system, right?
Absolutely. And we routinely relied on folks who were willing to come to the United States on H-1 visas and supplement our personnel. We could not find enough bilingual educators and bilingual credentialed Montessorians are truly a unicorn in the public setting. So we welcomed and embraced the opportunity to learn from our colleagues from around the world who came and enriched our program in such meaningful, powerful ways and reminded us of that true interconnectedness that we have globally with Montessorians all around the world.
And many of the people on this broadcast are involved, to the best of my knowledge, with the International Baccalaureate or the Cambridge program. And whether you're
Mm-hmm.
Montessorians or not, I mean, you know, if you're part of one of the international diploma programs, most of our staff are people that are citizens of other countries. That's one of the things we're really proud of. I see that surgery has indicated our small school in New Jersey, our 100% of our staff is foreign born. They're highly educated people.
Wow.
Their salaries are low compared to other sectors, but these are the women who put their heart and soul into their work. And last week, a parent questioned me, why do we have all brown teachers? This is a shame. How the narrative is
Mm-hmm.
changing in our society. Could not agree with you more. I mean, this is all about embracing our differences and finding common ground. It's not about politics. It's about solving problems.
Yes,
It breaks my heart. Oh, pardon me, Cindy, you go ahead.
I had a teacher from the Dominican Republic who came, and when you talk about people and being very highly educated, so she had two master's degrees, one in education with an emphasis in human development, and one in clinical psychology. And she spoke two languages, and she created a Spanish immersion program. But she also had um, through her clinical psychology degree, she had a real understanding of children, especially children who had special needs. And so she was just a gem to have in the school. And when you mentioned the someone being able to come for 1 to 5 years, she was able to stay for 5 years. We were able to get extensions, and she was able to stay for 5 years, and then she had to go back, and her visa said that she needed to go back for 2 years. So she went back for 2 years, but then she couldn't come back into the United States and has been trying for 2 or 3 years to return to the United States, and it hasn't been successful. And there have been a couple of other teachers that we were trying to get from Nigeria, and they're just being told no, absolutely not, that they will not be accepted into the United States.
Our colleague Natalie,
Natalie in the chat. Oh, sorry, Tim.
now finish your thought,
I
Lindsay.
think we were both going to read this.
Yeah, I noticed you're having a delay in
Yeah,
Hilton's chat.
Natalie from New Jersey. I'm sorry. You go ahead and read Natalie's comment. I apologize. I turned my camera off hoping to get a better connection. But I'm so grateful to be here in this conversation.
We're thrilled to have you here. So Natalie Baginski is one of our colleagues, and she's now at a school in New Jersey, which, by the way, Natalie, I didn't realize you were up there. She said, I'm at an IB World School, and half our school staff is foreign born. And again, I think this is true of many, many public, charter, private schools, Montessori schools, Waldorf schools, Reggio Emilia schools, IB, Cambridge. I mean, this is going to affect our profession. And I think especially if you have an early childhood division, or if you're running a child care center or an early childhood education center, you're probably going to be really, really pressed on two levels. One is if any of your staff are here on a visa, they may either self-deport or be deported, or they may be just living in enough fear that you don't know how it's going to affect their ability to do their job. The other thing is just in general, our families, our parents, our children, people are being affected. I know of at least one school up in Oregon, again, a Montessori school, where you all may have seen the news of immigration officials breaking into his car and taking him out. That was a parent at one of our schools up in, I believe, the Portland area, as I recall. This kind of stuff is happening, and it's, again, I'm spending a lot of time these days, not just in Florida, where we have lots and lots of foreign-born people, but in the Washington D.C. area, where again, this is, we've got the National Guard, and we've got immigration officials on the streets, and there's just a lot of tension, which is, it's affecting people's mental health, which is a concern. Lindsay, I see that you've written something. Do you want to just speak? I know you've turned off your camera. No? Okay.
Thank you, Tim. So I added in the comments that a school very close to me expressed that they have seen a steep drop in enrollment because they serve many people in the healthcare area, and many of those parents are here on visas. So they're documented. However, they're seeing that, as Cindy described earlier, some of those folks are having concerns about renewals and about the application process that they've recently completed, and they don't want to take the chance of having their children left at school should something happen. And so some parents are choosing to withdraw their children from their preschools and even work from home in some cases, especially researchers and folks who can have more flexible tasks. But the bottom line is they want to stay close to their children and not be separated. And that's a real fear, to your point, Tim, this trauma that people are living through in these very turbulent times.
Yeah, yeah. I see a post from our friend Natalie who's saying we have a plan to take all of our at-risk people into the corridor and up an elevator to one of our teachers' apartments if ICE comes to our neighborhood. They were close by this week. They stopped the bus, they boarded, they took people off and then put them in vans and drove them away. I can only say that this has got to affect children, whether or not it actually happens. Just that sense of fear. I remember personally as a young child, I was born in 1946. In the 50s, my parents still talked about the Holocaust. And in my house, if someone came to the door and I was there alone, I would hide because I was afraid that, the bad people were coming to take us away. And one of my other friends is, and a friend of Cindy's is Dr. Ian Eisler, who actually, on Crystal Night, her father was taken away, and her mother went down to the police station with little Rianne, who was a little girl at the time, and managed to bribe him his release and get out of the country on the last boat out of the country. The bottom line is, I don't care if you're Jewish, I don't care if you're Muslim, I don't care if you're black. This kind of stuff is scary and it's affecting children, and it's really regrettable. Whatever policy thought process is going on is a different issue, but it's definitely affecting people. And the medical field depends upon foreign born professionals. Nurses are mostly people coming out of countries like the Philippines and Haiti and so forth. They're wonderful nurses. And we need more nurses from America, but we don't have them. Um, and this affecting children's mental health. It's affecting our parents' mental health, and it's affecting our ability to staff our schools. Or at least I think it's going to if it's not already affecting you. Again, the school that I ran for many years, the Newgate School, one of their top people is a gentleman who is now out of the United States, self-deported out of fear that as a Venezuelan national on an emergency refugee visa, he'd be forced to deport.
Yeah, and I think that, it's children who are hearing and not understanding. They don't know how to comprehend all of this strange stuff that's going on in their world. They just know that things are happening and that it's frightening their parents and other people who are out there in the world. But it's also scaring staff. It's scaring faculty who are seeing these things that are happening, even if it's not causing them to be directly deported. They're fearing what might happen to them. They're fearing people who have been close to them, their coworkers, what will happen if these people go. And the the place that we had before, the trajectory of what was possible before with someone coming over is no longer there, because before we could come bring someone in on a J-1 visa and we could hope for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and then perhaps an H-1B visa. But now H-1B visas cost $100,000, and schools just can't afford that. And so the dream of someone being able to come over and to lend their expertise in education with the possibility that they may be able to stay longer really isn't there. And for many countries now, as the doors start to close, it's an impossibility for them to even think that they could come at all.
Yeah. We'd love to hear from those of you who are here and are willing to unmute and just speak, or want to put your thoughts into the chat. We'd love to know if this is a topic that is relevant to you. I mean, we suspect it is. That's why we're doing it. We know it's not a pleasant, uplifting topic. This is a scary one. And I have to make very clear to all of you who are listening, the Montessori Foundation is not taking any political side here. Whatever's going on, there are people who have different points of view. I will admit that I personally don't agree with this, but this is not about politics. This is about the practical issues of running our schools and the practical effects that we're seeing it impact on our employees, our colleagues, our friends, our parents, and our children.
It was interesting, the person who mentioned the plan that she had in case ICE came, at my school in Alameda, ICE agents came. It's a small island, and they were at Coast Guard Island. And we got the information that they were coming. What we discovered was that they were within 2 blocks of the school, and that they were going door to door to all of the businesses, because there's a business strip right there. And so they were going door to door, and I kept hearing the information. And so I finally called one of the restaurants that my staff frequents, and I said, have you heard that ICE is on this street? And they said they are in our restaurant right now, um, interviewing us. And so I said, thank you. And we sent out an email to the parents at that campus. And we said, we just want you to know that within a few blocks, there are ICE agents who are going door to door. If you choose to come and pick up your children, we will be at the gate for them to go. And so I didn't give my opinion as to whether or not I felt that they should, but within 30 minutes, we had maybe 2 children left. And we arranged for staff to go by Lyft if they didn't have their own car, and we were closed for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Again, the trauma that these kinds of things have and the long-term effects on children's sense of well-being and safety, on staff member. I mean, remember what a teacher is first off a human being who's in a very, very close relationship with her teachers, with her children. And if she's not in a good place emotionally, she's scared, it's going to affect their ability to really be present for children. So again, I think all of us here are involved in some way or other in the leadership of schools of one form or another, childcare, early childhood education, high school, private, public. And this is something that I suspect we either have seen or will see in our lives. Again, we'd love to hear if anyone has anything you want to share or ask. It's not that we're experts. We wanted to get an attorney. Dr. Acker reached out to a firm that she's worked with for years. Unfortunately, they felt that they weren't able to join us on such short notice. I see that Serbi has said this is impacting enrollment for us, since a lot of families in our area are H-1B visas, and they're not sure how long they will be able to stay in the country. So they're choosing to save up money in case they're sent back or their visas are not renewed. And then they would like to take home some money to redo their lives. So among other things, if you're running a small or a large school, Montessori or otherwise, it is possible that when you go into this year's re-enrollment period, you may find a lot of families who normally would be fine. If you've got an international parent body who may be thinking, I'm not sure if I'm going to be here next year. Now, certainly what I would say to them is, I'd go ahead and re-enroll. The worst that's going to happen is you're not going to be here and the school's not going to be able to force you to pay, but you may as well do it. But I think a lot of people are feeling nervous. I see that Emily has written, I'm wondering what sort of guidance schools are getting from attorneys on how to handle a potential ICE visit. That's a good question.
Tim, I would recommend the Americans for Civil Liberties, ACLU, their website, and I'll drop it in the chat here just in a minute. They have a number of resources and guidance that you could reference to set policies at your school. And Cindy's example is a beautiful one in that she was prepared. She had a plan. Natalie also described a plan that they have at their school. And what adds and magnifies stress, for me anyway, and for many people I know, is uncertainty and feeling unprepared and powerless. But being able to reference a policy guide, I would recommend that folks consult an attorney that if you want legal advice, but then start talking to other schools around you, collaborate. If you have an organization locally that you can collaborate with and come up with a shared policy.
I think we lost you yeah, your internet got a little wonky there.
So that folks, your parents and your staff, right? So that
Lindsay, your internet is cutting out. You want to put it in the chat? And
absolutely.
I'll be happy to read it to you. Again, we
Um,
apologize for Lindsay. She's at a conference in Hilton Head, and I think the hotel has intermittent internet. Emily is asking, I'm wondering what sort of guidance schools are getting from, oh, that's sorry, I already read that one.
can I
Please,
respond to that
of
as
course.
well? And it used to be that schools had safe haven resolutions and that schools were protected under those safe haven resolutions, except they have been um, changed, they've been rescinded or they've been modified. And so I would suggest, and this is something that also comes from the ACLU, is that depending on the state, that you connect with your legal counsel, particularly if there's a child care law center in your state, to find out how you can protect your school as a sensitive location or a sensitive um, place. And for some people, they're able to put up private signs or designate their school in some way or another that there are people who have disabilities or neurological differences. And so this is a safe place for them. And so it isn't safe to have any ICE agents come. There are some cities, the city that I live in is a sanctuary city. And so we're instructed to contact the police if ICE comes. And so you should find out whether or not you're living in a place that has been designated as a sanctuary city. In the state of California, just this past week, the governor made a requirement for all businesses that they needed to provide Know Your Rights statements, and everybody should provide those to your employees and to your family. But not only do they have to receive the Know Your Rights statement, but they also need to fill out a form that designates who should be contacted in case for any reason you are detained by ICE. And so then the school has a backup. If something happens, like the parent in Washington or wherever it was, Portland, who got pulled out of his car, that the school has information about who to contact in case there is something that occurs in on their property or in their knowing that they can reach out. And so even though it may not be a requirement in every state, it's certainly an excellent policy to be able to have something so that if for some reason something happens to a faculty member, their family knows, because they've designated somebody to be able to contact. And then, as Tim mentioned, it's important to have an action plan. Have an action plan for your school. Know what you're going to do, and then provide that information to your staff so that they know what's going to happen in case there is anything like that that occurs, and that they learn just like children go through stop, drop, and roll when there's an earthquake drill, that they learn what the words are for a particular drill, and that without fail, the staff knows what they're supposed to do. If it's a shelter in place or whatever it is, or it's excusing the children from school, that they know what to do so that people are not unaware, because being unaware makes you frightened.
Yeah. This whole issue of reaching out and getting legal advice is really important because, again, we're talking about a government agency that is essentially asserting that they have the right to do this. And we can't tell you ourselves what you can or cannot do, but you need to know what your options are, what your obligations are, and you need to, as Cindy said, have a plan. And Natalie Baginski, you asked, what are our thoughts? And I'm hoping that Cindy has answered your thoughts. Please jump back into the chat or unmute if you want. I see that Gail Hall wrote, it's relevant to all as children well-being and proper education is relevant to everyone. It's also relevant to me as someone who works in education and sometimes asks for observations. It's relevant to me as a person with a family history of such trauma, seeking a strategy to deal with fears. So I really appreciate that. Lindsay Pollock of Sarasota University has written that there are resources on how to create your campus school policies, know your rights, and this is the ACLU, which is www.aclu.org. I see that Laura Ribolo has written, I'm a prior toddler guide. Now I'm a current Montessori parent to a first grader. I'm a first generation. My son is a second generation. I'm preparing our family safety plan packet, and I'll be sharing it with our school. I urge parents, especially people of color, to prepare something similar and share it with their children's schools. Thank you, Laura. Lindsay,
I would be interested in knowing what's in her packet.
and you're invited there, Laura. Please feel free to put down some more information about what you're doing with your family's plan. Lindsay has written in the chat, knowledge is power. Having a plan provides a sense of security and safety. Um, I, I don't know that anything makes you feel safe if you don't feel safe, but it's certainly better than doing nothing. And I couldn't agree more. Emily has written, thank you. That was helpful. And Emily, I'm not sure if you need to jump off, but whenever you do, we certainly understand. We're so glad you came. Laura, again, if you get a chance, we'd love to know, as Cindy asked, what's in your family's plan? Interesting times, right, Cindy?
Yes. I think there was another comment in there.
Not that I see. I may have missed one. Try to,
It's up above Emily.
okay.
Oh, it's from a teacher from my school.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that. Hi, Carla. I'm a preschool teacher and I work with Cindy, and recently we lost a teacher, had to self-deport herself with her family. It was a very upsetting situation, not just for our staff, but for the children as well. It was hard to explain to the children why she had to leave. Of course, I mean, how would it not be? This is terrible.
What was especially challenging is that she almost every day would say, "This is my dream job." And so it was just so difficult to see her go.
Yeah. Well, again, some of these people are here because they're refugees. I mean, my friend who was an IB coordinator, was basically a political refugee from Venezuela because he was an intellectual. Um, I know that he was able to self-deport, and instead of being deported back to Venezuela, he's in another country where he feels much safer. The bottom line is this really frustrating. Lindsay has written down American Federation of Teachers has many free resources that support immigrant families. So it's www.aft, American Federation of Teachers.org. And then it says r-community/immigration. And again, it's in the chat for those of you who are participating live. But again, it's American Federation of Teachers, aft.org, r-community/immigration. It's another source of information. Cindy, any other thoughts that you have?
Yeah, I think that it's really important that um, school leaders can follow up with any of their staff that are born outside of the United States. Meet with them, let them share their feelings, their fears, make sure that they have all of their paperwork. We sat down with our teachers and in Alameda and said, we want you to make sure that you have all of these documents and they need to be on your person at all times. And we had them do it in front of us to make sure that all of that happened. And one of the teachers has been called into the ICE office 2 or 3 times. And each time I ask that teacher to take a picture of where they are so that I can see them, that they got there. And if they're able to send information to say all is well, just text that on the hour so that we know that he is safe. And we know who that we need to contact in case something else goes wrong. And then I would say that one thing that is really, really critical is be courageous in front of your staff. They're frightened. Don't be frightened too. I mean, we're all frightened, but don't be frightened so that they don't feel like you're going to follow through for them or that you're not going to look up resources and create a plan. They need to feel that you are doing something. And so when the teacher who ended up going back to El Salvador went to El Salvador, I told her, I will do absolutely everything that I can until you go. And I contacted Adam Schiff. I contacted 12 attorneys. I contacted a couple of attorneys who just kept sending me names of attorneys. I looked up absolutely everything. I contacted all of the immigration offices that would support people who were from El Salvador, and I connected them with that. I wrote letters. I did absolutely everything. And that's what she knew. She knew that it wasn't that I just put my hands up and said, "Oh, well, see you later." But that she knew that she had an army behind her who really supported her, who wanted the right thing to be able to happen, who knew that there wasn't anything that she had not done legally, and that we want her to be able to come back. And so she got to El Salvador and she's starting her Montessori training and she's hoping that she will be able to come back again. And we don't know, but what we did was to give her everything that we possibly can. And I think that that piece is something that your staff can hold on to, that you are trying, that you support them. And I think that's something that's just really critical.
Laura has written back, and she said, I'd be happy to share my plan. I'll try to get it in a PDF form. Right now, I just have our physical copy. She says, please feel free to email me. Hold on, at lgrebollo@me.com. I am looking into Montessori schools in Mexico, our family's motherland, and I think it would be wonderful to have access to have a network of our international colleagues and friends that can help serve as a liaison to families that do have to relocate abroad and wish to find a Montessori school community. As an aside, anyone who is in the Montessori school world who knows someone that's in that position, the Montessori Foundation does work globally, and we're happy to help you find a Montessori school. Not that you couldn't find one on your own, it's easy enough these days, but we're certainly happy to do whatever we can to help if one of you has to leave the United States or someone you know. Lindsay has written, and your community knows you're taking courageous action. Your courageous energy fortifies and strengthens your community. My experience is that sometimes they'll think that you're being courageous, and other times they'll think that you're getting involved with something a school shouldn't be involved with. I want to be realistic here. There are times when, getting involved openly like this is courageous and you get struck down. So you need to know not everyone's going to think this is good. There are people who are supportive of this idea of the immigration crackdown. So again, there are different points of view. Right now, what I'm focused on is the actual children, parents, teachers who are being affected, and I'm so sorry for what they're going through. It's not for me to say, whether or not the people who make laws in the United States or carry them out are doing the right thing or not. I have my opinion, but there are lots of opinions. What we're trying to do is communicate what do we think is happening and encourage you to be aware, look into it, talk to each other, develop a plan.
I also think that there's intent and there's impact. And I think that someone can feel that deportation comes from a place of good intent because that is what someone's belief is. But I do think that one piece that school leaders have is helping people to understand impact. And sometimes we share that information with each other, but we don't share that information to the greater population. And I think that we need to be able to share that. We need to provide letters to say, this is the impact on schools. This is what is happening. Are you aware of that? And very often, public servants don't know what the impact is because they're not in it. And I think it's important that we voice that we share that information. I think that's why research pieces like we've been reading since December are powerful because they do say there is a problem here that there are parents who are taking their children out of school. There are schools that don't have enough teachers or don't have enough qualified teachers. We had to here meet ratio immediately because in the state of California, the ratio is 1 to 12, which is not the same in many other states. And we had to make sure that by the time the teacher walked out of the door, we had somebody else in there to ensure that we had ratio and that they had proper educational units. And so I think that not knowing how this has impacted schools, how it's impacting children and their psyche, how it's impacting staff and their ability, the ones, not just the ones who are deported, but the ones who are still here, who still need to care for children, that there's an impact to them. And it's critical that we voice that people find that information out.
Would not agree more. Well, is there anyone else that has anything you want to ask or anything that you want to share? And Cindy, can you think of anything else other than, recommending that people look at things like the Hechinger report, which is doing a study of how this seems to be affecting the industry? And, one of the things that they're saying is, a year from now, we could have a whole lot less availability of childcare just because of what's happening. I'm sure the same thing is going to be true in the hospitals. There's going to be far fewer nurses available until or unless we can find a different way to create trained nurses and put them in the field fairly quickly. Now, our country has done that before. I remember during the Second World War, we were training fighter pilots in 90 days. I don't know what we're going to do. I'm sure there is a solution. But again, I think there's two parts to it. There's what we need to know as people running schools who are trying to do our very best to ensure that we're complying with the law, that our staff members are feeling okay, they're safe, that our families and children are feeling safe, that they're not being traumatized, and that we're not, behaving in a way that we regret later. We want to do the right thing, and that's a whole series of issues of morality and ethics and law and just common sense mental health. How do we find the balance? I see that Nasheen has weighed in. Thank you, Nasheen. She said this week, FB, I assume that's Facebook, is reporting ICS agents have arrived in Kissimmee, Florida. Over 200 rooms have been blocked in Central Florida, concentrating in areas where most tourists frequent and immigrants, first generations, live. Today, UCF, University of Central Florida, has ICE agents on campus. I'm worried for my UCF, University of Central Florida students, or student, I assume it's your own child, who lives on campus. I pray this for our Central Florida communities. Thank you, Nosheen. I certainly understand and agree. I have a home in Sarasota, Florida, and I can only imagine. I have not yet heard of the impact, but we certainly have people in the Sarasota community who think this is a really good idea. We also have many families from around the world, educated, very affluent, as well as people who are the typical people who do most of the menial work in America and everything in between. It's a very diverse community, as is most of our country. This is a country made up of many nations. Anyone else have anything they want to share before we log off? Again, we try to create a forum. Every week, we try to find topics and guests who we think will have something to say that you might find useful. The recordings, by the way, are posted every week on our Facebook page at the Montessori Foundation. So if you go to YouTube and you look up Montessori Foundation, you'll see that we have playlists, and we have a playlist for our Tuesday webinar, which is called Finding the Perfect Match. And we have a Facebook, a playlist rather, for this one, which is called Independent School Forum, Independent School Leadership Forum. Natalie
Tim,
says, thank you. Yes, Cindy.
I think the one thing that I want to say that people need to hold on to in the midst of being fearful, in the midst of perhaps being angry, in the midst of not knowing what to do, is if for any reason you have ICE agents who come to you, do not respond negatively. Do not respond in a way that could possibly endanger you or your staff or your children. Model peace, and continue to hold that no matter what. You can be clear, you can be concise, you can be strong, and you can be peaceful. And that part is really, really important. We don't want any situation in which somebody gets angry and ICE retaliates because of it. And so keep your cool and model respect.
I think that's very, very important. I mean, we've had a number of situations in the country where ICE, became concerned, got aggressive, and somebody got into an altercation with them and either got hauled off to jail or were hit, or in the case of a few people, shot. This is very, very regrettable, and it's very, very real. It may be wrong, it may be illegal, it may be I mean, it's hurtful. But the bottom line is, you know, if the Nazis come, you probably don't want to spit in their face. You want to figure out what are you going to do. So I'm using the word Nazi, and I'm using it because I'm of a Jewish American family, and we think about that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is, what you're trying to do is be a respectful citizen. Um, Figure out what your rights are, be very, very polite. Don't give them an excuse to believe that you're trying to start a fight. I think we're trying to de-escalate if we can. And again, to me, the heart of Montessori, and I hope the heart of everyone's school, whether you're a Montessori educator or some other kind of school, is the idea of helping children to have both peace in their heart and peace in their minds, but also the idea that we can find common ground. That, when someone's trying to hurt you, they may not want to sit down and have a dialogue. But the goal of getting through this is in part forgiveness and passive resistance and peaceful dialogue. And it may be, people may not be ready to be nice yet, and that could be on either side. But the bottom line is, in the long run, we have to find our common humanity. And that's hard. And I just acknowledge that. Now, Sheena said, thank you. I needed this today. Um, Conversation. Thank you. And thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, everyone. Peace be with you. Cindy, you are welcome anytime. I know how busy you are, but all you have to do is call. I will always be happy to have you join us. And that can be one time or every time. You're a
Thank you.
very dear friend. Thanks, everyone. So glad that Cindy, you suggested this topic, and that not one of our uplifting topics, but it is a topic that needed to be addressed. Lindsay,
Thank
thank you for giving up your lunch and joining us today. I appreciate you. Thanks,
Well
everyone.
spent. Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely.
Bye.
See you next
Bye-bye.
time.
Take care. Thank you, Tim.
Bye, Cindy.
Bye.